Open your hands.
Yes.
May the spirits guide you. Receive the wisdom.
12 women in white made her husband rich. There was one rule they lived by: break it and the price comes for everyone. His mother didn't know that rule. She only knew something was wrong, and she was determined to find out what. What she found broke something that could never be fixed. Stay with me, because this is just the beginning. 3 years before the fire, Amara sold Gari by the roadside in Enugu, counting coins that never multiplied, no matter how early she woke or how late she closed her stall. Her husband Chinedu was a good man, gentle, hardworking, poor in the particular way that wears a person slowly, like water over stone. They had one daughter, Adaize, 4 years old, who sometimes slept without dinner and never complained because children learn quickly what their parents cannot afford to hear. It was Ngozi who changed everything. Ngozi had grown up 2 streets from Amara. They had fetched water together as girls, shared the same church pew, the same secrets. But somewhere in the years between, Ngozi had become a different kind of woman, the kind who wore cars with drivers, who wore gold that caught the sun, whose husband had gone from a struggling mechanic to a man with 3 shops and a gate of his own. Nobody asked how. In Enugu, some things are simply admired, not questioned. Ngozi found Amara at the roadside stall on an ordinary Tuesday, sat on an overturned crate as if she still belonged there, and watched her work for a long while before she spoke. "You are tired," Ngozi said. It was not a question. "I am managing," Amara answered, the way poor people learn to answer. Ngozi smiled, not unkindly, but with something old behind it. "I was tired once too. Then I stopped managing and I started choosing." That night, Ngozi led her somewhere Amara had passed 100 times without noticing it. A compound behind a church hidden by a wall of frangipani trees where the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Amara did not know yet that walking through that gate meant she could never fully walk back out. Inside the compound, 12 women sat in a circle on the floor covered in white cloth. Each wore white, plain, unadorned, ankle length, and each had cowrie shells threaded at her wrist, her waist woven into her hair. No jewelry, no perfume, only white and shell, and the low murmur of a language Amara did not recognize, but somehow felt she had heard before. They called themselves nothing that translated easily. Later, Amara would only ever call them Endi Inom Ochi, the old women, though none of them looked old at all. An elder among them, Adaura, eyes like still water, explained it the way you explain rain to a child who has never seen a storm. "We do not make men rich," Adaura said. "We unlock what is already theirs to have, the wealth fate withheld from them. It is not stealing, it is correcting an imbalance." She let the silence sit. But nothing is unlocked for free. Every door has a price on both sides. Amara asked what the price was. "You will not know the price until it is time to pay it. That is the nature of the debt. But there is one law above all others. Break it and the price comes for you whether you are ready or not." Amara asked the question the answer had already made obvious. "And if I never speak a word, if someone finds you anyway without my knowledge?" Adaura's eyes, still water, did not move. "Then you will have failed to keep it hidden all the same. The law does not care for reasons. It only cares that the door stayed shut. Guard it as if your silence were the only wall between your family and what is behind it, because it is." Amara thought of Chinedu's tired shoulders, of Adaeze sleeping hungry. She thought of it for as long as it takes a mother to stop thinking and start deciding. She knelt on the white cloth. She spoke the words Adara gave her and felt the cowries pressed cold into her palm and felt something shift in the marrow of her, quiet as a key turning in a lock she hadn't known was inside her. Almost a year later, Chinedu's business partner called, breathless, saying a shipment worth more than either man had ever touched cleared customs untaxed, unquestioned, as if the paperwork itself had decided to look away. Chinedu wept that morning, not from suspicion, from relief. He never once asked his wife how their fortune had begun to turn. Within 18 months, Chinedu owned 4 shops instead of none. Within 2 years, the family left the 2-room flat with the leaking roof for a compound with its own generator, its own gate, its own name carved into stone at the entrance. Adaeze, now 6, wore shoes that had never touched another child's feet first. Amara met the sisterhood in secret, once a month, always in white, always with the cowries. She believed she had found the version of the bargain that cost nothing at all. Ngozi never once asked Amara how it was going. Not out of disinterest, Amara noticed that. It was the careful not asking of someone who already knew the answer and had decided long ago not to hear it out loud again. When Amara once tried to thank her to bring up the compound behind the frangipani trees, Ngozi changed the subject so smoothly that Amara almost didn't notice she had done it. Almost. She was wrong about one thing already and did not yet know it. Wealth, once it reaches a certain size in a family like Chinedu's, stops being a private matter. It becomes an inheritance. And inheritances demand heirs. Before the trouble came, there were Sunday afternoons like this one. Ngozi came by often now, not as the woman with the car and the driver, but the way she had come before all of it. They cooked together in Amara's new kitchen, sleeves pushed up, the smell of onions and crayfish filling the compound as Adaeze ran circles around their legs, stealing meat from the pot when she thought no one was looking. "You are doing it wrong," Ngozi laughed, swatting Amara's hand from the pepper. "You will kill us all before the ancestors do." They fell into the old rhythm they had as girls, teasing, singing badly to the radio, calling each other sister the way they always had, long before either of them understood what that word would come to cost. Neither of them knew that this was the last season before the wait began. There was one evening, before any of it started, that Amara would return to often in her mind afterward, turning it over the way you turn over a coin you wish you'd kept in your pocket a little longer. Chinedu had come to find her on the veranda after Adaeze was asleep and sat beside her without saying anything for a while, the way he used to when they had nothing and the silence between them was the only comfortable thing in the house. "Whatever happens after this," he said finally, "I want you to remember something. Before this house, before the shops, before anyone called me a success, I was only a man lucky enough to have you." He took her hand, rough still, despite the money. "That does not change whatever comes." Amara laughed, a little embarrassed, but she held on to that sentence longer than she let him see. She did not know yet how much weight that promise would be asked to carry, or how quietly a man can break a vow he still believes he means. Chinedu's mother, Mama Ize, had spent decades as a woman with little to say about it. Poverty made her quiet the way it makes many people quiet, folding her ambitions small enough to survive on. Wealth returned her voice to her, and with it an old and specific hunger. she began visiting more. She began speaking of legacy, of the ancestral compound that would need a son to inherit it, because she reminded her son gently, then not so gently. Adaeze was a daughter, and daughters marry a way into other men's houses. One child is not enough, Mama Eze told him one evening, while Amara stood in the doorway, unseen, listening the way wives in that house had learned to listen. Chinedu did not argue. Weeks became months. Mama Eze began bringing young women with her to dinner. A friend's daughter, a cousin's niece, always seated a little too close to Chinedu, always smiling a little too carefully. There was something else Mama Eze had started doing quietly that no one in the house had noticed yet. She had started watching Amara. Not with suspicion, not yet. Just the way a woman watches a locked door she's walked past 1,000 times and for no reason she could name has suddenly begun to wonder what's behind it. Amara told the sisterhood nothing of this. She carried the dread alone. It would not stay hers alone for long. The wedding was small by the family's new standards. 200 guests instead of 1,000, and Amara was expected to attend. Mama Eze framed it not as cruelty, but tradition. The first wife blesses the second, shows the family there is no shame, only continuation. Chinedu could not look at Amara that day. The new wife's name was Chidimma, 23, from a good family, chosen for the reason no one said aloud. Her mother's line had produced nothing but sons for 3 generations. 2 days before the wedding, Chidimma found Amara alone in the garden, away from the fitting rooms and the aunties and the noise. She looked younger than 23 just then, younger than her own wedding gele, which sat too heavy on her head. "I did not ask for this house," Chidimma said, quietly, not quite looking at her. "My mother told me it was already decided before I was told anything at all." She twisted a thread loose from her sleeve. "I am afraid of you. I think I am supposed to be, but I do not want to be your enemy." Amara could have said many things. She said the only true one. "I am not your enemy," she said. "You are not mine either. We are both being asked to carry something neither of us built." For a moment, something passed between them that was almost kindness. 2 women who might, in another life, have fetched water together as girls, sat in silence in a garden that neither of them had chosen. It was the only conversation they would ever have. Amara sat through the ceremony in a dress the color of dust, cowries hidden beneath her sleeve, cold against her wrist like a held breath. That night, alone, she wept in front of her daughter for the first time in 3 years. Adaeze, now 9, old enough to understand more than her parents wished she did, asked her mother a question that would not leave either of them alone again. "Mama, why did you make Papa rich if this is what rich does to us?" Amara had no answer. She had never imagined that the very wealth she summoned in secret would grow into the weapon used to replace her. And she still did not know that Mama Eze had begun asking her own questions quietly to a diviner in a house 3 streets away on a night Amara knew nothing about. In the weeks after the wedding, Amara kept returning to Adaora's words from the very first night. Nothing is unlocked for free. She had assumed the price had already been paid. The silence, the monthly rituals, the small sacrifices of time. She did not understand that the price was never a single payment. It was a relationship. And relationships do not end simply because one party stops paying attention to them. She went to the compound uninvited, unscheduled, and found the sisterhood already waiting, 12 women in white, seated in their circle, as if they had known she was coming before she knew it herself. Adaora did not ask what was wrong. She already knew. "He has wronged one of us," Adaora said quietly, and the word "us" landed on Amara's chest like a stone. "This became ours the moment you knelt on this cloth 3 years ago. We do not simply grant wealth, we protect what we build. You were never alone in this house of women." For the first time since the wedding, Amara felt something other than grief. She felt possibility. She did not let herself think of the garden, of the quiet thing Chidinma had said to her, "I do not want to be your enemy." She did not yet know what that possibility would cost a woman who never asked to be anyone's enemy at all. It began small. A shipment held at customs for the first time in 3 years, for reasons no official could quite explain. A business partner who had trusted Chinedu for a decade grew cold, then vanished from 3 deals in a single month. Contracts that should have renewed themselves on reputation alone simply didn't. Mama Eze, sensing something wrong before her son did, went back to the diviner. She came home pale and silent, and never again spoke of grandsons or legacy in Amara's presence. But she did not stop watching. Chinedu grew thin with worry in a way poverty had never made him. Chidinma, 7 months pregnant with the son the family had sacrificed everything for, began to fall ill in ways doctors could not name. Fevers with no infection, dreams she woke from screaming, unable to describe what she'd seen. Once, in a lucid hour, she asked for Amara by name, not in anger, but the way a frightened child asks for anyone kind they can remember. Amara did not go to her. She told herself it was not safe. She has never fully forgiven herself for the other reason she didn't go. The household staff began to leave, one by one, citing reasons too thin to believe. Chinedu did not know, could never know by the law that bound her, that his ruin and his rise had come from the same source, the same wife, the same women in white who had once knelt for him without his knowledge, and now, without his knowledge, unmade him. Chidinma had done nothing wrong at all. The death did not care.
Mama Eze had been watching for months by now. A glance held too long. A question she almost asked at dinner and didn't. A feeling she couldn't name that had started the very week the wedding gifts stopped arriving and the fevers began. That instinct finally won. One night, she followed Amara through the streets, through the frangipani wall, and stood in the shadow outside the compound gate, watching through a gap in the wood as her son's first wife knelt in a circle of women dressed in white, cowries catching lamplight, voices rising in a language she did not know but understood in her bones to be dangerous. She did not confront Amara that night. She went home and told her son everything. Amara had never once broken her silence, not in 3 years, not even in her grief. But Adaora had told her from the very first night that silence was never going to be enough on its own. The door only stayed shut if it stayed hidden, and it had not stayed hidden. The sisterhood had been seen, named, exposed to an outsider, not because Amara spoke, but because she had stopped watching the door as closely as she once swore she would. Adaora came to Amara one final time, and for the first time in 3 years, her still water eyes held something like sorrow. "You did not break the law," Adaora told her. "We all know this. But the law does not ask who is guilty. It only asks what is broken, and what is broken must be closed." She took Amara's hands, cowries pressing cold between their palms. The door that was opened for your family must now be shut completely on both sides. Amara asked if there was another way. There was not. There never had been. Adaora gave Amara one instruction before she left. Take her daughter from the house that night and do not return before morning. Amara did as she was told. She sat with Adeze in a small room across town, telling herself it was only for the night, that this was simply how the debt collected, quietly from a distance, the way it always had. Then, just after midnight, she heard it. Not with her ears, she was too far for that, but she heard it all the same, the way a mother hears her child cry from another room in a house full of noise. Chidima's voice calling her name once, the same frightened way she'd called it from her sickbed weeks before. Amara sat very still and did not answer because there was no longer anything to answer with. She reached for Adeze in the dark and held her until the child stirred and asked, half asleep, what was wrong. Nothing, Amara told her, nothing at all. She did not let go of her daughter again until morning. 3 weeks later, on that night, the compound burned with no sound at all, no crackle, no roar, only silence and ash, exactly as fire should never behave. Chinedu did not survive it. Neither did Mama Eze, nor Chidima, nor the unborn son the family had sacrificed everything to secure. Only the gate remained standing in the morning light, locked, though there was nothing left behind it was locking away.
Amara had done exactly as she was told. She had not stayed to see it, had not chosen who lived and who didn't. She had simply obeyed the way she had always obeyed, and that, in the end, was its own kind of cruelty. She was made to survive it, to stand at the edge of the ash the next morning with her daughter's hand in hers and understand exactly what her wish had cost and exactly who had paid for it and exactly why none of it could ever be undone. She never saw Adaora again. She never saw any of the women in white again. The compound behind the frangipani trees was empty when she finally found the courage to return. No cloth, no cowries, no circle, as though 12 women had folded themselves back into the silence they had always served. Some say Amara still wears white even now, though she owns no cowries anymore. Some say she warns other women, quietly, in the specific way of someone still bound by a law that will not let her speak plainly. She only ever says one thing to those who ask how she built the life she has now. Modest, quiet, entirely her own. Be careful what door you open for the people you love. Some doors do not simply give. They remember, and one day they collect.